Welcome to WP Theme Tutorial, episode 66. Today we're going to cover how I set up all of my large-scale WordPress sites. So a lot of what I do is e-commerce and membership sites, as you can see right here. And we want to do stuff like log our email and log certain scenarios under development, like say an error scenario. We want to make sure we track those and that we know about them. And I'm going to show you how I do that. Before I jump in, I just want to point out my agency site, sfndesign.ca. If you're looking for e-commerce development work or custom membership plugins or really anything custom, you can go there, you can get in touch with me on my contact form, check out my work and get in touch with me, and that's kind of what keeps this whole screencast going. So let's look at our WordPress install. What I have is an up-to-date WordPress install. It's 3.9 as of today, and it just has a Kismet, Hello Dolly, and WooCommerce installed, nothing turned on. What we're going to do is we're going to install a couple plugins that I have up on GitHub for free, and we're going to get our site set up so that we can log a bunch of different things, like log all our email. And next week we're actually going to cover how I use parts of this to log our error scenarios. The first thing we need to do is install WPTT developer constants. What this is going to do is allow us to define our environments, our local, live, and staging environments. That's what this is going to allow us to do. And we're going to put that in our MU plugins folder. Now you can see I've got here, this is Vim if you're wondering, I just have a plugins and themes folder, and that's probably what you have when you start. So I need to create an MU plugins folder. And what the MU plugins is it's called a must use plugins folder. You see it in multi-site for sure, but anything in here automatically runs all the time. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't turn them off. It just runs. And it actually runs before all the plugins. When you look at the hooks in WordPress, the MU plugins loaded runs, and then it starts loading all the plugins. And that's where we need to put our developer constants, because we want them available all the time. We don't want anyone to turn them off. So right now my MU plugins folder is empty. And the next thing I need to do is I need to clone my WPTT developer constants into this. So I'm going to type git clone, and I paste in the repository, and it's going to go into the MU plugins folder. Actually inside the MU plugins folder already, so I'm going to type git clone MU plugins. It's going to be WPTT developer constants. We're cloning it in there. So let's go back over, refresh. You can see I've got it. Now a quirk of the MU plugins folder is that it's not actually going to run the code inside subfolders. So the next thing we need to do is we need to create a bootstrap file. So we're going to call it WPTT bootstrap. You can see it's now in there, and I'm going to delete it actually because I didn't say PHP. So we're going to go WPTT bootstrap.php. Now I've got it, and I will open it. And into that, I need to start off my PHP header, and I'm going to do, it's going to set up our developer constants. Require once. So that's it. Now we have our developer constants file included. And what we don't have is our environments defined. So if we open that and we go to line 31, we have our live environment. So for me, that's wp-themetutorial.com. Staging would be staging.wp-themetutorial.com is already there, and then my local environment is actually screencast WP. So now I've got my three environments set up. These will actually accept an array, so if we had, say, a multi-site, then we would do whatever. And that would be for another URL. Another thing to note is if you have an SSL, you also need to include the HTTPS version. So that would be And you also would need to include it for your other ones. So for staging, we can copy, paste, S. S. So now it would also catch our secure environments. So now that we have that set up and we're set up with our environments, we also actually need to do one more thing. There's a bit of a quirk in WordPress where these URLs won't actually be defined properly during the password reset cycle. And so if we go down to our conditional, say is local, you'll see that I'm actually calling a constant called live environment, but we haven't defined it yet. So what I need to do for that is I need to vim, I'm going to go up to the WP config file, and in here I'm going to put it right below our keys. So in here what I actually need to do is I need to define 3 environments, and you can see that is described right here. Those 3 right there. It's exactly the same thing really as we did on the other site, or as in our other plugin. We just need to add the same URLs there. And so that would be, again, so live is what I have here. Staging.scene. And then local, which for me is screencast. And again, you'd also need the HTTPS versions. Now you notice we're actually serializing our variable there. We're serializing it because constants can't take arrays, and we need an array because we may have multiple URLs. Not only do we have HTTPS, but if you're on a multi-site environment, you'd have multiple URLs again. So now we have our local environment, live environment, and staging environment defined for scenarios like password resets. Let's save and quit that. Now, the next thing I do is I set up WP logging. And WP logging is a plugin by Pippin Williamson. You can see it right here. And it just allows you to log. It creates a post type and it creates some nice instances or some nice functions to allow you to log different things. So I will use this to log emails. I'll use this to log error scenarios. And let's clone this repository. Go git clone. I'm going to put this in my MU plugins directory again. Call it WP logging. And so now it's cloning. And we are done with our plugin here, the WPTT developer constants.php, so I can quit that. Now we need to set up WP logging. Require once. So now we have WP logging and we have the ability to create logs. Now on many sites you're going to get hundreds and thousands of logs. So I had one where we were putting out like a couple thousand logs a day because we had so many users signing up and we were logging a lot of these transactions as we were trying to find some bugs. What we don't want is to have millions and millions of logs. It's just going to waste space on our database. WP logging has pruning routines built into it, but they're not activated by default. So the next thing we need to do is activate them by, or turn them on with this. So what we have here is our first bit of code. Simply returns true. So we're going to turn on the check to make sure that yes, we should be logging. Should we prune? True. The next thing we need to do is schedule a cron job for WP logging. We're going to set it up for hourly. By default, it's going to prune logs that are 2 weeks old. There are other configuration options, and they're described in the README here. Down here, For pruning logs, you can go back to 1 month. You can tell it to, right now it skips trash automatically. You can make it not skip trash if you want to do that, so that they can be set up in the WordPress trash. You need to write another routine to prune those if you wanted. So now we have WP logging set up to clean out old logs after 2 weeks. There's still one more thing that I want to do, and that is set up the email logging plugin. And so I have a plugin called WPTT Basic Email Logging. And if we went back to our MU plugins and our developer constants, you notice that it has 3 filters in it starting at line 50. So the WPTT email logging is local, is staging, and is live. So the WPTT email logging plugin has 3 conditionals built into it already. And the developer constants here is set up to use it, so it'll define it properly for your live staging and local environments. Let's go to Git again. The WPTT basic email logging, that's going to go in our plugins. I'm going to call it WPTT basic email logging. And so now if we go back to our plugins, we now have WPTT basic email logging set up there, and we can activate it, and you can see we have logs. This overrides some of the default scenarios in WP logging. By default, WP logging does not show you the logs. And if we were to take a look at, close that window because we won't need it. If we were to take a look at WPTT basic email logging and look at the email log, you see first that on line 29, we include WP logging if you don't have it, and then we start adding some filters. If it's local or if it's staging, we're going to turn on so you can actually see it. You still can type in the proper URL to WP logging on a live environment, but it won't show by default. And then you can see we have our filters for is local, is live, and is staging. And finally, if it's live, we don't log. If it is staging or local, then we do log it all. This is my basic setup, and this is what I start out with on all WordPress projects to make sure that we're not emailing a whole bunch of clients, because I have totally emailed 10,000 clients before, more than once, and to make sure that we have some stuff for logging so that we're not, so that we can track down errors long term, kind of as they happen, even on the live site, we can start tracking them. Thanks for watching.